Whether you're chained to a desk all day or performing in a wrestling ring for thousands of people, drama is generally an accepted part of the workplace. For most of us, there are grievance procedures to follow, put in place by the HR team to prevent disgruntled employees from taking matters into their own hands. In the bizarre world of professional wrestling, however, there is no such protocol. Instead of HR, it's a kangaroo court, often headed, or so we're told, by The Undertaker, which adjudicates on any backstage disputes between members of the locker room. This obviously wouldn't fly in a conventional workplace, but in the context of WWE, where wrestlers spend most of their time on the road, it sort of makes sense. There's also one giant upside to Wrestlers Court: all the crazy stories that are leaked to the internet years after the fact. Shall we look at some? Yes, please, here we go. I'm Ben from What Culture, and here are 5 more WWE tales from Wrestlers Court. Number 5. Piper's Pit. It would probably not be unfair to say that Simon Dean, a man remembered chiefly for riding to the ring on a Segway, had a more eventful WWE career behind the camera than he did in front of it. During an overseas tour, Dean took it upon himself to tell the legendary Roddy Piper how their planned Piper's Pit segment could be improved. In doing so, he forgot one of wrestling's golden rules: never speak down to your elders. Piper himself was said to be fairly unfazed, but the rest of the locker room didn't share his indifference. They took Dean to Wrestlers Court immediately, and the punishment perhaps wasn't the most creative, but it was certainly effective. Instead of having him pay a penalty of his own volition, they instead just destroyed some of his belongings in the shower. It sounds like Dean wasn't exactly the most popular guy backstage, which may explain why his main roster run was so short-lived. Number 4. ENZO getting kicked off the bus. Seth Rollins told a fan a while back that Wrestlers Court was no longer a thing, and many were inclined to believe him. After all, there aren't many old-school veterans left in the company. However, reports suggest that the concept may have been revived over the summer after ENZO became a WWE nuisance by bringing groupies into the off-limits backstage area and generally just failing to show due respect for the sacred locker room rules. His punishment was his abrupt removal from the Monday Night Raw tour bus by a unanimous vote. Maybe there's something to be said for him being a massive pain in the ass after all. Number 3. JTG'S One Night Stand. Crime Time's JTG was 22 in the summer of 2007 when the company headed to Europe on a promotional tour, which, coincidentally, was where he succumbed to the advances of an apparently attractive female fan with whom he'd began flirting in a hotel bar. Unbeknownst to JTG, however, said attractive female fan had also caught the eye of one of his co-workers, who was upset when he found out that she had woken up in someone else's hotel room, because treating women like property is completely radical and not scummy at all. We don't know who said colleague was, by the way. The rest of the WWE locker room apparently agreed that JTG had crossed the line, whatever that line is, and demanded that he appear in Wrestlers Court immediately to answer for his crimes. In the end, more pressing matters, namely the death of Chris Benoit, saw the proceedings called off. I wonder what his punishment might have been, though. Maybe being employed but not being put on television for 6 years. Oh, that must suck. Number 2. Johnny learns to be grateful. Appearing in front of WWE cameras is a dream most childhood wrestling fans never get to experience for real, but let's be fair, news that you're about to take your first steps into a WWE ring would probably be bittersweet if you're also told that it'll be part of a 5-man male cheerleading squad. Nikki, Kenny, Mikey and Mitch were all said to have taken it well, which is to say that they actually just managed to keep their real feelings bottled up, but the group's final member, Johnny, wasn't so happy and apparently made the mistake of voicing his frustrations to members of the locker room. You can't be sad, never be sad, always happy, wrestle all the time and fun. After discovering that the young apprentice wasn't showing the required levels of gratitude for his newfound opportunity, the company's locker room elders dragged him into Wrestlers Court, where he was inevitably found guilty of being a sulky teenager. According to reports, he was made to buy Bradshaw some beer by way of punishment, which sounds fair on paper, but if the APA man is anything like his on-screen alter ego, he drinks a lot. Number 1. Daivari respects his elders. Things were going quite well for Daivari during the early part of his career. He helped Muhammad Hassan to become one of WWE's most despised heels, and then turned his hand to managing one of the best of all time in Kurt Angle. However, one person he allegedly did not impress was veteran Chris Benoit, who accused the rookie of disrespecting some of the backstage elders, most notably Shawn Michaels, which is perhaps only fair given that Shawn is rumoured to have done exactly the same thing himself about a decade earlier. Unfortunately for Daivari, the Wrestlers Court decided that he ought to be punished by being made to do 1,000 squats, which, even if you're a professional athlete in your early 20s, is quite a tall order, especially when you're being watched by the entire WWE roster. If nothing else, this should really put whatever harrowing hazing rituals you've undergone into perspective. At least you were able to walk the next day.
The killer in you is the power in me. Pleased to meet you, so good to see. The killer in you will keep me alive. Back to back, self-sacrifice.
Well done, you made it all the way to the end of the video. Now, I'm not just here to increase our market share with women aged 18 to 35, but to tell you to watch one of these other videos we've made that are probably quite good. So, go on, off you, that one or that one, they're both good. There you go.